Hey Doug, how you doing?
Hey,
How you doing?
good. Sorry, I should have been there 5 minutes ago, but I talking to somebody on the way out the door there. So it's working.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is.
The world is behind you.
Yeah, there we go. And I can follow the agenda and everybody else can too.
Yeah, you know what I do to make it easier is so you've got the agenda open.
Right.
Does that include the packet or no?
Yes.
Okay, so what I do is I open the packet and then I also open just the agenda so that I
Um,
can just click on that tab and go right back to the agenda. And then I click on the other tab and I can go back to where I was in the packet, and I don't have to be scrolling up and down all the time because sometimes we look at what's in the packet as we're going through the agenda.
okay, let me see. How would I do that?
You just open the
That I
agenda.
realize.
You can
Um,
go, you can grab the agenda off of the website and just open it, and it'll just be another tab on this because you've got Adobe Acrobat Pro DC, which is what
right.
I have, and it'll just show up as another tab right next to this one.
You know, the only problem I've got is on the bottom. You know, I'm not showing my tools to where I can grab it normally. So, huh.
Um, One of the things you might want to do is click on that on the left-hand side, the icon that has two pages.
Where's that?
Keep going, now down.
Oh, I
Either
see it.
that one or the one at the bottom. That's just another way to quickly see and grab something. You scroll up, you can grab the little box and scroll up and down. The box to the right. There you go. Yeah.
You know, but before is if I stop share, I don't want to lose the picture. So if I take the view and put it to gallery view, what does immersive view mean?
Oh, I don't know.
That's full screen. And I just need to tell you that it's being recorded. So,
Yeah, that's fine. What's behind you? Where are you?
oh, I'm in the hotel and, you know, it's the W hotel in along Lakeshore Drive.
Oh, okay.
And if I could only get this so I could get the agenda back up, I think I'd be happy.
Well, this share screen.
Yeah, that I know. And
You can,
I think if I could just,
you
oh,
don't
I
like
guess,
that, you can just,
huh?
if you don't like that window on the left there, you just exit out. There's an X there. Yeah.
Yeah, that way at least it gives me some more room. Sometimes I know they ask me to pull up other things. For instance, let's say April, what the heck is this? Um, and Autumn will be joining us, and let's say they want to take a look at her response. You know, without having this toolbar next to me, there it is, task view. Would that be what I want? Nope. Where did you go?
Me?
Yeah, you can probably see me,
Yeah,
right?
I can see both of us. Yeah.
There.
Hey, by the way, before I forget, if they do ask you to summarize the UPC selection process, when we did the qualifications-based selection, we asked for proposals from Rincon, Stantec, because they do planning and permitting, and UPC. And Rincon and UPC responded. Stantec declined.
Okay, I can tell you what I think I'm going to do with that. And I hope you'll bear with me, but I think, you know, the technical committee is absent tonight. Both of them are going to be.
Okay.
So I think I'm just going to save that until the technical committee can be here.
Super smart. Yeah, because that the whole process was driven by that. And then, but the process was that, you know, people forget, but the full board approved the process and then approved the selection.
Well, that's the important thing. And that's the one thing I didn't get a chance to talk to you about.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of did that process come back to the full board? And you just answered that question.
Yeah, and that was memorialized in minutes of the meeting. So that took place.
So you may have to stay with me only in the event they ask me, gosh, I don't know how I would do that. You know, usually I've seen my toolbar down here. You see my screen. You probably just see the agenda though.
Well, I see, no, I see your screen is what I see. Or
Yeah.
the application, you know, it's, I see all of your tools and everything for.
Oh, you do? I just can't see where I can get back in and get into my files.
Oh, down in the bottom tray, you should have, oh, but it's covered up. I guess when you go down to the bottom, you get your Zoom tools. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what you do is try this. Just hit the escape key one time.
The escape. Where's the escape?
Upper left-hand corner of the keyboard.
Yeah.
Hit it one time. See if that does it.
No. Doesn't.
So let's see. Oh, I see it. So up at the very top, where it says view options at the top of your screen.
No, I don't see it. I see you are sharing.
And there's no view options.
No. You are sharing.
Because it's, you know, it's different for different people because it depends on if you're the host. But I have under view options, I have an exit full screen. And then it.
Where did I see that? You know, that could be.
That's what you want, is to exit the full screen, and then you can kind of slide. You'll see your bottom tray then.
I'm trying to find it. I can pause share, new share. What if I did new share?
Well, get out of share screen for a second.
Stop share.
Okay, and then see if you can find.
I know view options, but I have speaker view, gallery view, immerse view, and full screen.
Oh, yeah. So the full screen is you have an exit full screen?
No.
Are you on full screen where you're?
Yeah, I am on full screen. Oh, I got an exit full screen.
Okay, click on that.
I did that. and I still don't get my stuff back at the bottom.
Did your screen shrink a little bit though?
Yeah.
Okay,
it did.
so you can go down and grab the bottom and slide it up a little.
No,
Well, go, so now that you've exited full screen, you should be able to like grab the top white bar and move that
There.
full screen around.
I did.
Try that and move it up a little bit. So that-
Still isn't enough.
Okay, so you know what I do then is look, okay. So grab that white screen, that white bar at the top,
Yeah.
lower it down until you can see the full white bar. And then go on the top edge of it, so you get the double arrow. And then grab it and pull it down, and that'll make it shorter vertically. Then you can grab it again and lift it up.
Oh boy, you're confusing me, but
Well, let me just go through it step by step. So grab that white bar on the top and then slide that whole screen, that whole zoom.
like
screen.
this.
Well, I can't see what you're doing.
Oh, well.
Drag it down a little bit. So in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the minimize, maximize, and close symbols, minus, square box, and then the X.
You know, if I could pull this back up. Okay.
You need to expose an edge or a corner so you can grab that edge or corner, click and drag it, and shrink it down a little bit more.
I've done about what I can do with it.
Because you can shrink it down to like, 3 inches by 4 inches. But if you grab, if you.
No, I don't want to do that. Let's see.
What I'm trying to do is help you reduce the
Okay.
size of that screen so that you can get it off of your tray on the bottom. You know what the tray is? That's the all your.
Yeah, I know what the tray is. Oh boy. I don't want to leave the meeting. And now I can't pull it back up again. Now I've lost it. There it goes. Okay.
So
I've tried.
You should be seeing like you and me stacked up on top of each other. Is that what you see?
Nope.
What do you see?
Well, right now, if I go to gallery view, I can do that.
Yeah, go to the gallery view.
It's checked, but it won't change it for me. I cannot get it.
Get what?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this for a second. I hate to do that, but I have to bring the agenda up. And I don't know where it's gone. Oh, I know what I could do.
You got to share screen.
Yeah, I got to go back to sharing the screen. And it should still be there. And it is.
So if you have, one of the things, remember, they're going to ask you to show is an American flag.
Oh, damn, that's right. And you know, I hate to say that, but I'm not at home.
Well, no problem. So well, again, that's a challenge. If you don't have the bottom tray, you can't go to the internet and just search for a flag image to show.
I'll have to ask somebody else to do it. it still can't catch that.
Now, I was planning on not attending this meeting unless there's
Which
something
is-
critical.
Which is okay. I just may not be able to,
Do you want, does it help if I email you an image of the flag? I mean, can you get the email and open it?
well, we can try. We still got 9 minutes.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
Bob, I wanted to know if you would put on the schedule motion to reconsider your appointment, knowing that you have family in Chicago.
No, I don't think I could do that. My wife wouldn't be happy with me.
So I want to show you my room up here, just in case you haven't seen it.
No. Oh, I see. Sure. Absolutely. Well, even, go ahead.
I am an owner.
Oh, are you?
I'm a
That's
one-share owner of the Green Bay Packers Corporation.
Sure. That entitles you to being seated there.
It actually doesn't.
It doesn't? I thought it did.
No, it entitles me to go to the shareholder meeting, which is typically around this time of year. And as a shareholder, you also elect the board of directors, which is about a 15-person board, I think. Imagine trying to herd that.
Yeah, no, thank you.
But yeah, that's it. Really, what it gives you is the bragging rights that you're an NFL team owner. That's really what it gets you.
Well, I have to be really honest with you. It's really my wife's family, and the Cubs could be my number 2 team. I mean, the Bears. But I got to tell you, I'm being where I am on the Central Coast, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool 49er fan.
Okay.
That probably won't make you any happier.
No, I'd have to say my 2 second teams would be the 49ers and the Chargers. I went to college in San Diego.
Okay.
And kind of got bit by the Dan Coryell days with the San Diego Chargers. But my father-in-law is a 49ers fan, and no, I take no exception to the 49ers except on those days when we play.
Yeah, well, good. We're on the same line with that. But my wife's family, obviously being from Chicago, there were a lot of cold days in Soldiers Field for them.
So one thing that Packer fans respect about Chicago, although they appears they bought some property outside of Chicago and going to build a stadium. And, Minnesota and Detroit both built themselves cozy little domes. And
Right.
The Bears and Green Bay, of course, are the only ones left that are playing real football still.
Right.
Well, Bob, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, I think.
Okay, good enough.
Tom might be able to help you. We were trying to, Bob's stuck with a single screen and he's having problems getting his tray exposed. And so you might need somebody else to share an American flag for the pledge.
Yeah.
I'll cue that up right now. I did that last time, if I recall right.
That would be great.
Thanks, Tom.
I'm away from home, as you know, and that's why the wild background in behind me, it's actually the modern decor of this room we're staying in.
Got it.
Has nothing to do with my preference, but
Good to see you all. So I'm going to sign off.
okay.
But,
Thanks, Doug.
good memories.
Excellent. Thank
Thank you
you.
also.
Bye.
I see that Autumn's on board here. Autumn, are you there? She's got to be there
Yes,
somewhere.
I'm here.
Good. Okay, thank you. Well, I must confess to you all that today we did a lot of walking all around the lakeshore area. I think we must have walked better than 3 miles in the humidity.
It's good for you.
It was good for me.
That sounds like fun. Well, while you're there, you got to do it, right?
Oh, yes.
So let's see. We're just waiting on, well, I shouldn't say just, but Brad.
Brad,
Right.
right. And he said he was going to be here, so I expect him anytime.
So, Bob, while we're waiting, are you going to be on that 2 o'clock call tomorrow?
That's my intention, yes.
Okay, then I need to send you the invite info,
Or-
or maybe you have it.
Already do, already have
Okay.
it.
All right, and then I'll send you what Supervisor Hartman's office sent out today.
Okay,
As far as you've seen it already, but it's just the agenda and the attachments.
great.
Thanks. All right. Hey, Brad.
Good evening.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you all doing?
Well, thank you. All right, well, it's 6 o'clock and we have a quorum. So General Manager Perot, would you call the meeting to order, please?
Certainly, the meeting is called together order at 6 o'clock. And present we have President Palmer, are you present?
I am.
Vice President Fayram,
Present.
Director Ross,
Here.
Director O'Neill, Director Arnie are both absent. So you do have a quorum.
Right. Okay, thank you. So then we'll move on to the pledge. Tom, can you do your flag? Share your flag.
Would you give me screen, allow me to share screen?
Okay. How do I do that? Can
So
somebody?
go to participants and make me co-host or
Oh.
allow screen share. I forget which it is.
Okay, Tom. And spotlight, make host. No, but I want to make you what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you co-host for the time being.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go. And you may have to return it to me, but
Okay.
you should be ready to go.
Yeah, so I'm going to stop screen sharing there. And I'm going to share this. And Madam President.
All right, thanks. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
it stands, one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome. Let's move into item 4, director comments on anything not on the later agenda, if we could. Director Fayram.
My only question, Madam President, is on the order of the agenda, since we do have a representative from Stantec. If we would consider maybe moving that item up, I'll leave that to you while I.
Okay, thank you. So, all right, anything else as far as meetings or report outs? No. How about you, Director Ross?
No, I don't have anything that won't be covered later.
Okay, so I guess I would ask if we have any member of the public here today that's here to address the board or has questions on the budget for 2021-22, because we do have that public hearing scheduled.
Madam President, wouldn't you want to take public comments on matters that are not on the agenda?
Yeah, but I'm addressing, yes, I'm just addressing Director
Okay.
Fayram's comment about the specific public hearing on the budget, because then I wouldn't want to take Stantec out of order.
Sure.
If there's public here to do that, that's all. So I don't know who 562-477-7792 is.
That's mine, Autumn Glazer.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Hard to know.
Sorry
Okay.
for the confusion.
No, it's all right. That's just part of the world we live in. Just clarifying. Right? Then let's do this. We'll do item 5 and item 6, and then we can move to Stantec if that works for everybody. And then do the remainder. Okay. So I have no director comments on anything that we won't address further. Then it sounds like item 5, public comment. Is there any member of the public attending that would like to address the board on a matter that is not on tonight's agenda? Okay, so hearing none, we'll move on to item 6, the administrative agenda, which is approval of the June minutes and invoice payments as outlined here.
Madam President, if I could, I just want to, for the record, indicate that we actually did not have a finance committee meeting due to technical problems with the Zoom, but I did reach out to the finance committee and ask you to review those invoices and submit any questions that you might have. I'm presuming that you did review those invoices and there were no questions. So I'm suggesting that the board could be in a position to go ahead and approve those.
Okay, thank you. I did, so Director Fayram and I are on the finance committee. I did review them and I have no questions.
Madam President, I would move items 6A and B as recommended.
Okay, there's a motion. Brad, you and Tom are it tonight, so.
I will second that motion.
All right, a first and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor. Oh, wait, we need to do the roll call because of the virtual, right?
Right. President Palmer.
Aye.
Vice President Fayram.
Aye.
And Director Ross.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Then we will jump down to item 8B, excuse me, consideration of a proposal from Stantec for design services.
Yes, Madam President and members of the board, as the board will recall, the district entered into a general services for engineering with Stantec, and that agreement was effective in August of 2020. There were 3 tasks that were called out in that agreement. One of them was the load study. The second task is the preliminary design, and the final task was final design. In accordance with the agreement, Stantec is to submit a proposal for each of those tasks sequentially. I will note that the load study has been completed, and the district did request that Stantec propose submit a proposal for task 2, which again is the preliminary design. Preliminary design is to come up with a design that is, first of all, sufficient in terms of cost estimates to be able to lend itself to the assessment process that we'll undertake in the spring. The second part of it, and maybe just as important, is the 60%, what has been configured as 60% of the preliminary design, or a design that is sufficient on the entire project to move it forward. The proposal was reviewed by staff as well as various members of the board. Some of the members had, as well as staff, had some concerns regarding and some comments. Those comments were relative to the schedule. The initial proposal did not have a schedule per se, and the phasing to ensure that the preliminary design could be done in such a way that the entire project could move forward if sufficient funding was available to permit it. It also recognizes that there still is the potential for phasing the project. Again, it depends on the amount of cost of the entire project. That letter went out to Stantec, and Ms. Autumn Glazier is the project manager. She in fact responded. A response was received yesterday evening and was distributed to the board. It did include a schedule. That schedule indicated that in fact Stantec would be able to be done with their work prior to or just about February, when the engineer's assessment report needs to roll out in order to keep to the property assessment process that we're looking at for June of 2022. So at this point, the board has the options available to it. Certainly, I would entertain questions of myself, and Autumn Glazier is also here to answer any questions and maybe elaborate on her response. There are options available to you. You could authorize that staff begin to work on the amendment to the agreement, provided that any areas that you think should be included in that amendment be done to the satisfaction of staff. The other thing you could do is, if you desire and think this still needs some additional information and from Stantec, you certainly could continue it to either a special meeting or the first meeting in August. I think either one of those would not be problematic from a financing standpoint, since we're still waiting to hear from the state on the signed agreement on the funding. That concludes my staff report, and I'm available for questions. And as I'm sure is Ms. Glacier. So it's your preference how you would like to proceed at this point.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I guess, Autumn, is there anything you care to highlight or present to us as summary, or would you rather just have a conversation, questions from the board? I'm open. If there's anything Bob didn't get.
No, Bob covered it pretty well. That's what him and I have been discussing over the past couple weeks. And I do want to apologize ahead of time. I was trying to get my camera to work and my internet, so that's why I'm on the phone too. So anyway, I apologize. I'm not visually there,
Okay.
but I'm happy to entertain questions. Yeah, go through questions, have a conversation. I want to make sure that everyone's on board and on the same page.
Okay, then I will turn to my colleagues. I don't know if one of you wants to go first or has specific questions or comments. And then we can decide, you know, I think after we have a discussion, how we want to obviously move forward.
I have some comments. Tom, I don't know if you want to go first or not.
Go ahead.
So my first question is for Bob. So I'm very concerned about understanding the schedule. And the last time we talked, at least that I am aware of, we're trying to understand the process of getting to the election and what the timing looked like for all the different tasks that had to happen. So is there a schedule that's new and improved that has all that stuff in it that we're all happy with?
I don't know that you're all happy with it. I've sort of roughed it out on my own enough to know that in backing it up, probably the most important thing that the first milestone we need to make in order to make June is that engineer's assessment report, which needs to occur in February of 2022. From that point, there will be a necessity to set public hearings with appropriate notification deadlines as outlined in law. And additionally, you've got to leave time for workshops prior to the actual assessment itself. So I know that I have not yet produced in writing that schedule. I would be happy to, but I can tell you that we need to make that February date in order for it to work. And that perhaps is the most important thing relative to Stantec's work, because if that gets delayed or late, then there would be a possibility that we could not hold the property tax assessment vote prior to the end of June.
Okay, so could you explain the assessment engineer's report is not by Stantec, but by someone else, correct?
That will be an independent assessment engineer that will take the information that Stantec or whomever is successful with the preliminary design will take that information, roll that into an engineer's report that in turn has to be presented to the board as a whole within a certain time frame. The board then begins to take the actions that actually initiate, from a time perspective, the assessment process.
Okay, so when the assessment report has to be done by the end of February?
Yes, yes.
And how much time does the assessment engineer need?
They will begin working with Stantec, I'm sure, prior to receiving the final report from Stantec. We'll need to feed that information as it's developed so that the assessment engineer can begin working on it in order to produce that report in time to present to the district board in March.
Okay, and when is Stantec supposed to be done with their work?
in February, if I'm not mistaken. Autumn, can you remind me as to what that schedule is?
Yeah, we had proposed to submit our preliminary design and model by February, by the end of February.
Okay, so you're wrapping up at the end of February and the assessment report has to be done at the end of February. So that's kind of tight or maybe impossible. I mean, let me know how we expect that to work.
I think it's going to be tight. And obviously, we're going to, one of the things that will complicate things for us a little bit is, again, the financing for the work that Stantec's going to do. We'll get them started as soon as we can, but we can't realistically get them started until we have the agreement signed for the grant from the state. Now that's expected to accomplish in August. I don't have a date specific for that, but it's my hope that we'll be signing that agreement in August. And so from my perspective, if the board can feel comfortable with Stantec, at least by the meeting date in August, we will be able to get them started almost immediately after that date.
Okay, well, thank you. And I just think it indicates to us that we're really gonna have to watch the schedule carefully here.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Anything else for Bob or Autumn on this?
Well, yeah, one quick question. So
Yeah.
is Stantec feeling like they can get the information to the assessment engineer before the end of February? I mean, what kind of timing do you envision as far as providing what that assessment engineer will need?
From our perspective, I think we can get a draft preliminary report out. The end of February was final, so that was after everyone provided comments and feedback. So I think that we can work kind with that and work closely with them on what information they need, and we might be able to push most of it ahead, kind of front load it.
So Autumn, you're thinking, so if you think, would that be like December, January then? If we're looking at a final, I mean, they'd have enough to get started, right? These aren't exactly sequential. We can get the assessment engineer starting to ramp in anticipation and preparation for a final, but a lot of that's.
Right, I think the bulk of our submittal is the preliminary design plans, and I don't know, Bob and I didn't talk about, I'm not sure if the design plans are part of your submittal package or if you just need the design information and cost information. But some of that we can front load as far as the design input, but produce plan, you know, the preliminary plans after, if that makes sense. So the details can be worked out ahead of the final submittal.
Well, and I think, sorry, but as soon as we have the green, we're going to have to fine tune this when we actually have the money from the state, from the water recycling grant, right? Because that's when the clock really starts ticking. And then I think, I mean, our goal has been to front load the contracts and identify those for the parties we need to know are going to be involved and do this work that get us to June. So anyway, I don't know if that helps, Brad, but I think, you know, next up is the assessment engineer and the environmental, right? Anything else, Brad?
No, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Tom?
Yeah, so I've got a number of questions and maybe Autumn can try to address these. One, we talked about the schedule, but your team is kind of spread out, and I assume that you are mostly working from home. Correct me if I'm wrong, with all your staffing, and so to stay on schedule and do all that, are you confident that you can meet the schedule under these conditions? And even in your in your letter and your original proposal, you talk about the uncertainties of COVID. But as you can hear from from the discussion just now, I mean, this, we need the schedule to hold.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Our team worked remotely even before COVID. That's why we were able to transition so smoothly to working from home. We have the luxury of having a pretty robust team in California, and I am part of a bigger water team in California. So I work very closely with folks in Pasadena and Rockland, Nevada City, and Irvine on a regular basis. So most of our projects are have team members from those offices. In addition, our programs are set up to work kind of cloud-based. And so we have one set of files that everybody has access to on a much more streamlined fashion than having kind of individual office file locations. So those help us to work remotely, work very efficiently remotely. And again, that's just something that's come with Stantec. We have the ability to work with people all over. The one perk with our California team is we're all in the same time zone. It gets a little tricky when you start working in other states and other time zones, but that's not the team. That's not our main team. Our main team is in California in the same time zone. So yeah, I don't see a problem there. It actually helps when we have schedule challenges or projects that, you know, we're kind of trying to condense some stuff into a very strict timeline. It allows us to pull people in seamlessly as a result. We don't always have that many engineers available in the Santa Barbara or Central Coast location. Just not as many folks. So that gives us a much bigger pool to choose from.
Okay. Have you or any of your team been to the site up here?
To the proposed lift station site?
No, just to the town to see just the lay of the.
Yeah, absolutely. Pre-kids, I've spent a lot more time up there. I do have young children. But from a work perspective, I did go after, in our initial task one, drove through the site to get a lay of the land with regards to this project.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, I've got a lot, I've got a lot here.
No,
So
go for it.
keep going. The other thing along with the timing is on costs. Your proposal, as most consultant proposals, always have a caveat of that, you know, your costs are based on your understanding of the project and what you know. I guess our comment is, unlike maybe other clients or when, you know, you've done work for, you know, the counties or cities or whatnot, if you find out there's something and you need additional design funding, I don't know that we have that. So I guess what I'm asking is are you willing to ensure that you'll meet the cost as well? Because if you end up coming back and saying, well, we need to do this and we need another whatever $1,000, you know, our budget is extremely limited by the authority that was given to us. We're very fortunate to have this grant, but
Right.
we can't have a cost overrun here.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to say ensure to that you know, there's unknowns and they're all unknowns until we discover them. So I understand your concern there. I think our approach is we understand we have a not to exceed and we have a proposed scope with assumptions. It never fails that you get into it, and we might need to just reevaluate that as far as, you know, if there was a wrong assumption or if something changed in the field. I think we don't proceed with work without approval from our clients. So anything of that nature, we would come back, and knowing that we have a limited scope, there's no additional fund, there's not, you know, money sitting somewhere else. We would probably just look at the scope and see, you know, what can be done and work within that budget.
Okay. I think in the original proposal, you had indicated that your approach was to allow for the design of 2 sites of the treatment plant. Is that right?
We were going to evaluate, yeah, the 2 proposed sites.
If the board was to select a site and say, this is how we're gonna go, would that help you?
If there, yeah, it would streamline it for sure, especially if they're in different locations and changed the design significantly or the layout. Yeah, it would definitely help having a selected site to start
Well,
with.
yeah, because my concern is based on where the site is. If we have a site upstream, like where the site we've been looking at, the county site, versus a site downstream would significantly
Mhm.
affect the vertical alignment of the system. And
Absolutely.
I want to try to avoid the cost of redoing that, and maybe that's a topic that we're gonna Mr. Perot, we're going to take on actually in this agenda, is talking about some of the site locations. I
From a schedule perspective, that would also help if we were just designing and evaluating one site, just to put that out there too.
Right.
In terms of the staff that you have, I know a lot of folks at Stantec, but I don't know the staff that are listed here.
Mhm.
And I know in your proposal, it looks like Stantec has done a lot of extensive large scale wastewater treatment systems. Like I think one of your staff was listed as having worked on Hyperion, and we're about as opposite of Hyperion as you can get. Have you
Right.
guys done similar small scale projects like this that include a package plant?
Yeah, so I know you were familiar with Dave Rundle, and he retired. So he
Yes.
was originally on our SOQ. He's been replaced with Gabe Arano. Now he is in Nevada City, California, so he's north of us, but that's his specialty. They do a lot of disadvantaged communities, a lot of SRF funding, and all wastewater, and heavy on the wastewater side. So package plants, septic to sewer projects. So very similar. And then Johnny Zukowski, who's the project engineer on this, him and I both came from Pinfield and were there for 10 years. And so we worked with Tom Rowe and Brianna Daniels and Dave Rundle and Craig Stewart and all of those on quite a few small. So this type of project is what, is our niche. Even though we are part of a large firm, we stick with the small and medium type projects locally.
So thank you. That's great. Maybe what if you could send to Mr. Perot maybe a couple of similar projects that Mr. Arano had done, that would be helpful. Yeah.
Okay.
On the schedule, with the end of February, when do you think you would have the 30% plans done? You have the ongoing, the design as kind of a continuum, but we have a 30 and then a 60 as 2 milestones. Do you know when you would have the 30% done?
I think we could have the 30% done relatively quickly. Johnny is the project engineer I referenced. He's worked on this project over the last 10 years in multiple layouts, so pretty familiar with that. So I think going from where we are to a 30 is pretty straightforward. So I would say, end of 2021, maybe early January would be what we'd be proposing.
Okay. And that,
oh, sorry,
go
ahead. Oh, I was just going to say that we've projected out the topographical mapping. We can start quite a bit with the aerial. Oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Sorry about that. I froze now.
I can hear you.
Oh.
I think it's Tom.
Yeah, it was me.
Oh, okay, cool. No problem. You never know sometimes. What I was trying to say was that the topographical mapping will start with an aerial of the entire district, and we can do quite a bit off of that. And so there's some leeway there to get to a 30, even if we don't have the ground survey or the full base mapping for phase 1. So I think we can work with the schedule for the 30% is my
And
what kind of thing.
forgive me for asking all these questions, but this is the first most critical stage of this whole project, and so we have to get it right.
Absolutely. Nope,
So
I understand.
on phase 1, the design of phase 1 has to be done in a manner that the balance of the town can feed into it. So
Right.
I just wanted to confirm that you were that you understood that. I mean, there's some particular areas grade-wise that need to be considered when you do the layout of the system, because if they're down below the piping infrastructure, then we've got a problem there. So I know there's been a couple different versions of concept layouts for the town, but we need to make sure that this isn't a concept layout. This has to work. If we're going to build this, the rest of the town we can't rebuild it when, as we add additional phases to the town.
Right. Which is the reason for getting the aerial for the full district, was so that we're not at concept level in that sense. We've actually got some on the ground data that we can use. And the goal is that the model would take into account the entire system so that we can size it properly for any of the downstream portions that may be in the first phase. So yeah, no, that's very much understood. But it's gotta work in the end.
Yeah, and
it's not concept anymore.
Right. And I'm trying to remember in the proposal, then you talked about the site design of the plant site. While the concept that we're approaching this is with the package plant, was your 60% including a site plan of the plant site? Without understanding that 60%, you're not doing final design of where the package plant modules go, but we need to know that if there's surge tanks or pump stations or whatever, that that we have a site that's going to work. Is that included?
Yeah, we wanted a site layout. Yes, I agree, and that is included. Including I know there needs to be a barn or a way to facade the area. So all those are included in that site plan layout. Obviously not to a final design, but enough to say it will fit on the site and you have space.
And then the other thing in the cost estimate, it doesn't say, at least in your clarification letter, but the estimate has to include the final design and construction cost, right? Okay.
Yeah. What I understand is that final, as the encompassing of the full project, and I believe there were 4 phases mentioned. So all 4 phases would be included in that preliminary cost estimate for funding purposes.
Okay.
Is how we understood it.
4 phases of. Right now we just have a phase 1 and 2, don't we?
Yeah, I think anyway, you finish. I'm kind of hung up on the semantics on this too. And I want to be abundantly clear about designing a system, I'd say to 60% for the entire district. And then if we back into phasing it based on necessity of funding, then we do that. But we should not presuppose that we're only doing phase, that was an early thinking, but I think we've come back to, we're designing for the entire district to 60%. And that's, unless we find otherwise, that's what's going before the property owners next year. So if we haven't identified the funding that makes that possible, then we have to decide on the phasing. At least that would be that's my preference. And
No, I
think-
agree with you. And so maybe, Autumn, can you clarify then, is your proposal for 60% for the entire district?
No, our proposal is for 60% for the commercial zone, the first phase, with the model being for the full district, but not a conceptual design plans for the full district.
Okay. If I can keep going, Madam President.
Please.
So one of the issues too was in an earlier, or in your original proposal, you had the district providing certain pieces of information, and I'm trying to remember if I saw that we cleared that up. I don't want the district to be responsible for giving you any wrong information. I want, if there's wrong information that we gave you, then we're responsible for fixing it. If it's wrong information that you did, then you're responsible for fixing it. So are we of the same understanding that all of the utility, any of the conflicts, I know there's storm drains out there. I know we got a fiber line out there. And then of course, other gas and electricity and stuff like that, that's going to be your job to gather all that, right?
Right. So during the base mapping effort, we will go through Dig Alert and all of the providers for their utilities and either clarify that they do or don't have utilities and request their as-built, including any future work. We do try it if available. I can't say that everybody always has available, but if they share future work, we try to coordinate that. The only thing we had noted was that the district had let us know that you would provide the ID1 water utility maps, but we can go through the same process with them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel more comfortable that, that those items of work are within your control and your responsible charge. I just, if we don't give you a sheet or we do something wrong, you're going to rightly come back and say, this wasn't our mistake. I wouldn't fault you for
Right.
that. So that's why I want, I want you responsible for all the items of work so that, we don't have that, well, whose mistake or whose fault was it?
Yeah.
And then as a part of that, you're going to also identify right-of-way needs, because that has to be identified. Now, I know a lot of this is going to be in public right-of-way, but maybe not necessarily all, which goes back to President Palmer's point on the entire town. Like where I live, I don't know that we're going to have a system that will work without acquisition of some easements, because the fall of the land goes to the south and the road doesn't connect through. And there's probably some other areas that do that as well. So if they're, and in the right of way can be rather expensive. So we see your note, Hillary. Thank you for that. And so we want to just make sure that, again, when we go for an election, it's got to be, the numbers got to be right, because it just has to be right. And so just noting that. I think one of the,
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think just one of the things that comes down to this, in fairness to Stantec, is, it seems to me we need to really try to identify where this stuff's going to flow to. And I know I have my thoughts on it, because I hate lift stations like the plague. And there are some, the way this town is laid out, much like when Los Alamos did their sewer in the 80s, they made use of the same thing. They sited their plant down gradient of the town, and then they avoided a lot of that.
Right.
So I don't know, Mr. Perot,
Understandably.
are we going to be taking that up later in this agenda?
You're muted, Bob.
Oh, you're muted, Bob.
Yes, we will be discussing the site. There are, as you know, 18 sites currently. won't go into that have been identified. But tonight we're going to try, or the recommendation at least, is that we make a strong effort to limit the number of sites, recognizing that the sooner that we get to an answer in that regard, the more assistance it will be to Stantec.
And then I think lastly, and then I'll stop, Madam President, and I might have some follow-ups, but I'll start there, is that does the design address the effluent disposal and how? Or are you citing the plant and that's a future, where it goes as a future issue?
So our understanding is that the effluent disposal is being coordinated through GSI. When we were asked to put this proposal together, we were given kind of a matrix of multiple firms and who was doing what. So we are involved from the sizing perspective of the effluent tank sizing, but then the actual disposal was listed under GSI, so it is not included in our scope.
Okay, but we would need the cost estimate for those facilities, whether it's injection or creek, whatever it may be. Again, we have to capture all the costs, so you could.
Right, so we would need those proposed costs from GSI.
And then those would feed into the engineer's report as well, right? Or is that within, is that within the Stantec plan, or is that something that feeds into the engineer's report, which is actually the cost estimate?
Madam President, my suggestion would be that, and it is my hope that you'll have the GSI proposal in front of in front of you next month, your next month's meeting. And once we get GSIs going, my suggestion is that GSI work with Stantec and roll those costs into Stantec and what they're doing, so Stantec ends up producing a single cost estimate for the entire project, and you don't have it coming from two separate directions.
That makes sense to me. Okay, Mr. Fayram.
Just one last question. In most of the design work that you've done, what can we expect? And I know that design will really detail that, but typically what can we expect in terms of the depth of the sewer system?
We try, it really depends on kind of the layout and where we're going. We try to start at a 10-foot depth as being your max. That's the average. It's not necessarily to say that they'll all start at 10. We may have to go deeper, but 10 to up to 5, and then starting again depending on the terrain.
Well, and again, that goes back to my, we have to look at, each home is going to have to flow by gravity, into a facility. So,
yeah,
the depth is.
I'm assuming most of the home septic tanks, or at least maybe some of the larger properties, their connections are in the back of the property versus something coming out to the street. So there's definitely some considerations to be made through this process.
And I'd urge you to, I'm not sure what the code is, but I know there's a code for the depth of the leach fields. Like I know when I have mine pumped out, I break my back digging how deep that thing is. And so, we're not starting at the finished floor of the house. We're starting, in the case of Los Olivos, 3 to 4 feet down already. So,
right.
So the depth of the sewer, that's why it was really important that the plan and the profiles, be on there so that we can at least try to identify if there's a flaw in getting someone to be able to connect.
Yeah, and we've seen in some of those instances, either a small pump. I know they have those E1 systems that we installed in the Rincon area and other places that might make sense versus an entire system that accommodates one parcel. So there's definitely some considerations we can go through during design when we get into those details.
Okay, yeah,
Not that that's always favorable. So there's pros and cons.
I know we can do a, do a pump system, but I think if we're gonna ask people to pay to a sizable amount of money to hook up to sewer, to have a residual pump station on their own, I don't know that that's how we should go unless it's absolutely required. And when you get to it, you might want to talk to me, because I'm probably not me myself, but some of my neighbors are in a very precarious position in relation to where the sewer would connect.
Okay,
and
perfect.
I just wanna make sure that we're accommodating all that stuff, because we can't redo this once it's done. So
Yeah, no, I understand.
I think I'll stop there, Madam President, and let you go. And then if something comes up, I can circle back again.
Okay, thanks. So wait, I'm not muted. So thanks, Brad and Tom and Autumn as well. I mean, you addressed most of my issues. I think I too would be interested in examples of similar size projects. You'll get those to Bob.
Yeah.
Which communities, how that worked. And then I just want to go back to looking at your clarification on the phasing. And I just want to make sure semantically, and maybe this isn't just about Stantec, but this is about the district, that we're really looking at zones instead of phases. And we're designing one project for the whole district. Is that fair? I see Bob nodding his head. I mean, that's really what we're doing right now. We have to get, in my opinion, everything to 60% in order to get a cost for the district-wide project, and then look at how those break down by zone. And that would probably necessitate, Stantec going back and re-estimating, which I fully understand. But again, to Tom's comment, it's imperative that we get this right. At least more than an 80-20 at the first go here, more like 95-5. So that's my comment and ask, kind of moving into discussion. But
Madam President, I agree. And I know that what Stantec has here is not what you asked for, but my fears of what could happen by not doing this right, we don't want a Los Osos here, and so we got to do this right. And I know there's a cost implication, but really a lot of my concerns that I expressed go away if we do 60% for the entire district. And I also think on that end, we really need to land on a site, because then we're going to get the best product out of Stantec, when that happens, and avoid Stantec having to do a couple of different iterations. So we might be able to get some trade-offs there. But I agree with you. And that's the only way we can get a cost estimate for really what this thing is. So yeah, I agree.
okay. So the board members have spoken. Hillary, did you want to address the board on this item in particular, or something in general? And if it's in general, I'm going to ask you to wait until we've finished considering this item, if I could. What's your preference?
I don't know. Am I on? I can't figure out this out.
You are.
Can you hear me?
We can. Hello.
I'll wait till you guys are finished.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, but I do want to speak to this.
Well, this particular item, the Stantec contract, or did you have another item? There is something else on the agenda.
All right, well, maybe it's Stantec. The outlining of their work.
Okay, well, now would be good then.
What?
Now would be great, a good time for you to provide your comments on the Stantec scope of work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm not turning on my live video because It's frightening. But I've been listening. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you guys' work. Stantec, I appreciate your work. I want to really impress upon Stantec and the scope of this work, that it includes everybody. I've heard it said, and then it's not real clear to me, but that it does the whole thing, even if you do part 1 and 2. But we are working on money coming into this project from the state, and it's a good project, but not in pieces. So I don't know who is directing Stantec for this design, but to include the whole area, Lisa Palmer, your comment before, I'm going to say yes. Please do the whole picture. All the residents, not phase 1, phase 2, get rid of 1 and 2. Do it all. Can we see what it costs? And so that we can go for that cost.
Great. Great. Thanks so much, Hillary. Appreciate it. Sorry about that. Okay, gosh, sorry. It says I'm muted and then I'm not. So, okay, so let's bring it back. It sounds to me, if I could, that we need Stantec to revise the proposal based on this conversation. I think primarily, unless I missed something, Bob, it's with respect to 60% for the whole district, broken out by zone on a cost. I'll let you guys figure it out, but it's a 60% design for the entire district. Is that the pleasure of, and plus I think we can't take action today, 1, because it needs to reflect that cost, and 2, certainly given the importance of the decision, want to have another meeting where we have our technical committee part of that. So I'm open also to having a special meeting if we need to before August to move this along. I think between this and GSI and the environmental, if we need to do that, we do, in order to be ready to hit go when those state funds come in.
Madam President, I agree with that approach, and I agree with what Hillary had indicated too, and that gives us the tools we need. If we do break out phase 1, we know what those costs are, but the town has to be designed to at least 60%, so we know. I also note that there's the potential for some federal money being available as a part of the infrastructure
Right.
stuff that is being talked about back in Washington. And so I think we need a new proposal that, I'm not comfortable with the proposal and a follow-up letter. And then I'd just like to impress upon Ms. Glazer that understanding our concerns of the time frame, and that's additional work. And so we need an honest evaluation of what your schedule is going to be with that. And we'll just let you take a look at that and tell us. And then just the cost, understanding that, we're grant funded here and to 50%, and that, we just need to know that we're going to be good on the cost, and that, if you come back and need an additional scope or something, we're relying on you to identify that and make sure it's all encompassing, so that when we make a decision to award this, that we're going to get the product at the end of the day and on time. And I know what I'm asking for in engineering. There's get it fast, get it cheap, and get it good. And normally you only get to choose 2, but I guess we're asking for 3.
It's worth asking, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll work with Bob and revise based on this discussion.
Madam President, if I could, just a question so we can kind of begin to time frame this. You know, Autumn, given what you've heard tonight, how quickly do you think you could turn around a revised proposal?
Probably within, probably at the end of next week or within a week. I just would need to get the team looking at all the details.
And maybe we can have some discussions in between as well.
And
Yeah.
Mr. Perot, I'd also note that this is being recorded. So
Yes.
if Ms. Glazer was frantically trying to take notes and didn't get everything, I think we can make this available to her if she wants.
Absolutely.
And or her team. It might be helpful
Thank you.
to hear that. And so I saw that at the outset and I go, oh, that it's good that we have that recorded like that. So.
Right. So, and Hillary, you wanted to add something on funding as long as we're here. Why don't you offer that, the federal funding? Is that aligned with what you sent the other day?
Thank you. Everybody, thank you. And Stantec, thank you for all your hard work. But everything is changing so fast right now. You know, federally, I mean, we can't wait for federal. We might be all be dead by then. But there is a big emphasis on water, wastewater, groundwater, and preserving water right now. And I think there is more money available to you, to the LOCSD, than they realized a month ago. Having stayed on top of that through Irwin, Jane Gray, who is going to help LOCSD through Joan Hartman's office, which we're meeting tomorrow. Our goal is to get as much money as you need to build your wastewater recycle facility. And I will say that to Stantec, I don't know what your design exactly includes, but it needs to include the cost of a recycle water plant that will provide for everybody and take from everybody. Not, I really want to get rid of phase 1, phase 2. Your whole community
We got
needs
that.
to.
Thanks.
Am I a broken record? I'm sorry.
No, but
I will stop. I will stop. But I will say this. It is changing. We're meeting tomorrow with Joan Hartman's office and so forth, and Jane Gray, who has the link to the money for whatever you want to build. And all I'm going to say is build the whole thing and not half and part. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I appreciate it. And I think what I'm hearing too, Hillary, is that a design for the entire district is going to make us eligible for more money than if we're phasing it. So at that,
yes.
I think we'll wrap it up. Bob, do you need an action from the board, or you have what you need to go with Autumn and Huddle and get a revised proposal? You're on mute. Bob,
yes,
you're on
great.
mute. Thanks, Hillary.
I will, rely to a certain degree on Ross for advice, but I think the consensus is pretty strong and staff has enough information and direction that what we'll actually do is work with Stantec in getting a revised proposal that reflects the 60% design for the entire project. We will, as soon as that's in, I'll begin working to move it along as quickly as possible. And if we're able to make a special meeting, I'll suggest that.
Thanks. Yeah, that's consistent with your option 3, provide staff with direction. So I think that's what we just did. Okay. Thank you all. That was a great discussion. Autumn, thank you for the work you've done. And as I mean, I'm glad you were here to hear this firsthand and the discussion with the board. I hope that's beneficial as you go back and revise that. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yes,
Madam President, I also
absolutely.
want to thank Ms. Glazer and Hillary for joining us and providing, Hillary, for your comments and your support, and for Autumn taking our comments, and we look forward to moving forward on this.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, you guys. And Tom, that was a nice thank you. I thank you all. We're going to get this. It's in all of our interest to get this really well.
Yeah.
And we're
And
with you.
Thanks, Hillary. It's nice to be, anyway, it's nice to be headed in the same direction together. So we're pretty optimistic about that. So I think with that, we're going to move on back up to item 7.
Sorry, can I stall things for a minute?
Of course.
Because I keep looking for where we're not aligned exactly. Maybe we are, but my question is, do we need to do some kind of design related to recycling the water? Or do we have enough in the current effort to cover that? Because I understand in terms of getting funding that the recycle of water can be a big deal. And I'm just not sure if that's in the current scope of the design.
Go ahead, Bob.
Madam President, yeah, that's actually part of GSI's work. I've already, reviewed their proposal initially, and to a degree, one of the bridges that they are going to have to cross is an examination of the ground table and to whether injection in fact works for the ground table, and to what degree it's efficient, reliable, and cost effective. So they will, in their work, be looking at that.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right. So we're going to wrap up 8B, going once, going twice, and move on to 7, which is public hearing on the proposed budget. So let's see, we need a motion to open. Well, how do you want to do this, Bob? I'll let you go.
Madam President, I'll give a brief report. The order of business is that I will give a brief report. Then you will ask the public if there's any public present to comment, followed by questions of me, and then you can deliberate and take a motion to either approve or recommend, make some other direction relative to the approval of the budget. With that, I'll begin with the staff report. The proposed budget has been in the works for some time. It was initially presented to the board on May 12th, and it was reported or transmitted to the board again on June 9th. The board in turn set the public hearing for this evening for the formal consideration of the budget. That included filing in the paper and publishing the appropriate notice that gives better 14-day notice about this proposed budget. I will note that the proposed budget was also carried in the district update that was released to everyone last week. Having said that, the original budget that you considered consisted of a balanced budget with $676,257 in revenue. And the revenue came from 3 sources. One was a cash reserves of slightly more than 213,000, 188,000, almost 189,000 in assessment revenue, and the remainder was grant funding. The expenditures are totaled in that draft budget $565,130. The major expenditure actually being put forward is the $439,000 to carry largely the work that we're talking about this evening. Since that time, there are a couple of other factors that have come to staff's attention, and I want to remind you that basically the board has the opportunity to adjust the budget up until its actual adoption. The two additional factors are first, the CPI adjustment for the assessments, and the budget was predicated on a very low CPI increase of approximately 0.5%. Historically, that CPI has been adjusted by the 12-month period ending in the preceding May, or May of, in our case, May of 2021. In checking that period, actually, the CPI indicated an increase of 3.9%. And it was a bit larger than obviously anticipated. I'm recommending that you stay consistent with past practice and increase the assessments by that amount. That will mean there'll be an adjustment of slightly more than $7,000 to your assessment revenue. And the other area for consideration is I'm suggesting, and you've heard a good deal of discussion about moving forward and the costs of what the district is undertaking. Obviously, grant and financial assistance is going to play a major role in that. In the past, the district has spent $5,000 annually in grant seeking assistant costs. I'm going to suggest that that be doubled in light of what we need to do with our budget. If the board adopts the budget as revised, you still have a revised budget or a balanced budget with $683,624 in revenue and $575,130 in expenditures. And it leaves you with a balance of about a remaining balance specifically of $108,000. With that, I'll conclude my staff report. The board may want to open the public hearing at this point for public comment.
Do I need to make a motion to open the public comment, or someone needs to make a motion to open the public comment?
Actually, you can go ahead and do that yourself. You don't need
Okay,
a motion to do
then
it.
the public comment on the 2021-22 proposed budget is open. Anyone? So I think we'll now close the public hearing or the public comment on the budget and bring it back. Any questions or comments from members of the board?
Madam President,
Yes.
I appreciate the detail from Mr. Perot. You know, we saw various versions of this. I totally support Mr. Perot's adjustment with the additional funding from the increased CPI. So unless anybody else has any comments, I'm prepared to make a motion. I'll just wait.
Brad?
So, okay, so as far as CPI, we're going from 0.5 to 4% roughly.
Roughly 3.9%.
Yeah, so that's kind of a big change. Like, I understand the precedent. We want to keep doing things the way we've been doing them. But I guess I'm tempted to recommend that we only go half that far, but I'm open to whatever makes sense.
Maybe we could ask Mr. Trindle, the action by LAFCO says that, I don't know if we have discretion to pick something other than what the CPI really is. Do we, Trindle? Kendall? In my experience, when we've done this at the county, the CPI is what it is and you implement it. You don't do something less than what that is.
Yes, I think that's true, but generally comes down to if you're going to ask for more money, whatever the amount is, you need to have authority for that. If you want to ask for less than what you are authorized to ask for, you can, but there would need to be some discussion as to the reasoning why the amount being requested would be less than what's authorized.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Trindle. I guess my view on this is was concerned from the get-go at the funding level that LAFCO gave us. And I'm certainly prepared to, we are fully within the law with what the citizens voted for to implement the true CPI. And I think we should stay that course. So that's my recommendation. I don't,
Okay.
I would say this, I don't think it's a change. I'm not sure where the 0.5% was. Maybe that was something that Mr. Pike estimated, but the actual CPI is what it is, and that's 3.9%. And that's what I think we should go with.
Okay, I'm okay with that. I just wanted to have the discussion.
That's a fair question.
Yeah, I appreciate it. While it is a large, relative to what we've done in the past, it is what it is. And for a number of reasons, I think we stay the course. I mean, I can go into it if you want, but so I'm supportive of the CPI and yes, on the grant assistance. Bob, the only thing I see is the 10,000's not on the grant assistant line. So it's just, it's not a big deal, but just so you know. So any further discussion? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam President, I'll move adoption of the budget as outlined by our general manager.
I'll second that.
Okay, a first and a second. As far as discussion, Bob, did you have any feedback from either of the other board members regarding the budget?
Nothing regarding the budget.
All right, thank you. Okay, then. Roll call for a vote, please.
President Palmer,
Aye.
Vice President Farram,
Aye.
and Director Ross.
Aye.
All right, 3-0, thank you. Moving on to resolution authorizing a tax levy with a CPI increase.
Yes, really very brief report now because you've had the discussion regarding the CPI increase.
Right.
This is an annual process that basically authorizes the county to levy the assessment. There are a number of things that need to be filed with the county, and the resolution has the necessary attachments. And we've already talked about the 3.9% adjustment.
Right, and that's in here. I see that. Okay, thank you, Bob. Discussion or a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move item 8A, items 1 and 2.
Okay, do we need to read the resolution or can we just do that?
You don't need to read the entire resolution, no.
Okay.
Just the title is sufficient.
So Madam Chair, then I'll recommend item 8A, items 1 and 2, including item 2 being resolution 22-7, a resolution of the Board of Directors of Los Alamos Community Services District authorizing tax levy with CPI increase and providing for collection via direct charge by the County Santa Barbara Auditor Controller via placement on the secured tax bill of all parcels in the district, including exempt pay, partially exempt parcels persistent to past action by the Board of Directors.
I will second that motion, and I think it's 21-7, the resolution, not 22-7.
Did I say, stand corrected, 21-07?
Okay, there's a first and a second. Roll call, please.
President Palmer,
Aye.
Vice President Farren,
Aye.
and Director Ross.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted.
Great, thank you. And Bob, thank you for your work on the budget and
Yes.
getting that handoff from Doug and smoothly getting us to this juncture. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to 8C, since we already did Stantec Urban Planning Concepts Siting Study Review.
Yes, Madam Mayor, as you'll recall, Madam Mayor, excuse me. It's
Got promoted.
Promotion.
Old practice for me. Madam President,
I
as
don't
you
want it.
as you recall, during our last meeting, the UPC siting study was presented. There was no action taken. I'm actually suggesting in this item that the board take further action and consider reducing the number of sites that have been identified. As you'll recall, in the attachment, you see the attached report, there were 18 sites identified by UPC that might qualify as potential sites for the location of the wastewater treatment and reclamation plant. And those were based on certain criteria, which included location and sizing of the property, et cetera, and whether or not the property was in right of way. Out of the 18 sites, as you'll see, UPC had actually identified a number of preferred sites, and those are identified in the report as in yellow, and sites that were really secondary sites. I'm suggesting that the board consider narrowing the number of sites under consideration to 4 or less. And first of all, I would think that we would eliminate all of those that are considered to be secondary sites, which I think, if I recall, takes that number from the 18 to roughly to 8. Then staff has been involved, as has some board members, in reaching out to the various property owners and to see if they have any interest in participating with us in the location of the site. As indicated in the staff report, the Baptist Church property has indicated that although they would like to participate with us, they're unable to do so because there is a certain covenant on the land that prohibits it. So that would eliminate that property for consideration. I do want to mention that we've had a positive discussion. We've had ongoing positive discussions with the county on the right-of-way owned site that is in the north of the district and east of the Maddie project. We've also had basically some initial discussions with the Gott family that owns property along Santa Barbara Avenue. Those properties are of appropriate size, and they've indicated an interest in participating as well. We've also had discussions with the owners of the property that's identified as the Little Creek property, which is the one on the far south of, in fact, it's immediately adjacent to the district boundary. It's a rather large piece, and the property owner has expressed a strong interest in participating with the location of the plant. There are some advantages to the Little Creek site from my perspective, simply because of sizing. It can accommodate both the package plant and additional modular structures that may be necessary, as well as basically has space for percolation, underground percolation ponds that would greatly help. Having done that, what I'm looking for is to reduce, if you will, the number of sites to 4 or less. If it is possible that you can identify a priority site, that would be great. But you have options. You can either direct this to the project management committee, if you so desire, to actually come up with a list of those identified sites, or you can make that decision tonight, or you can provide staff with other direction. So I'm available to answer any questions of me you might have. And then I would suggest that you take up the discussion of reducing sites.
Okay, thank you. Brad or Tom, do you have questions or comments for either Bob or council on this?
I have comments. So I sent an email to Bob a couple weeks ago saying we really should have a matrix that identifies the sites that we really like. And the reason we don't have that, I think right now, the Little Creek site is number 17 out of 18.
Right.
And I think it's the one we tend to like the best.
Mm-hmm.
That means our matrix is not right. And we need to change the weighting and maybe add some criteria to the matrix so that that Little Creek site gets a very high score, if that's the one we really like. So my proposal is I'm willing to work it and see if we can get the matrix without changing the actual scores, just the weightings, see if we can change it so that we can show the sites we like best at the top of the list with the best score.
Madam President,
Yes.
I think what Director Ross is proposing is a good exercise that we could do and do it in terms of the weighting and the work that UPC did is fine. There's more at play on this, so I'm wondering how hard it would be for either the project management committee or some other group to do exactly what Director Ross says. I look at the Little Creek property, and it has so many other intangible benefits that are going to benefit our community, and I think a lot of these other ones could be dismissed. How would we get there to do that? Maybe identify from what we have, picking a couple and then doing a matrix only on those and then seeing where it comes out. Is that possible?
Well, I think that's the hard way to do it. I was going to do it the easy way, the lazy way, which is basically leave the scores as they are, but simply add weightings to each of the columns to reflect what we really want. I think that can happen very quickly. Yeah. And I have no problems doing it. So if there's interest, I'll be happy to do it.
That works for me. And I think we get and shorten the list. I mean, well, I'll leave that to you. I mean, you're going to have it so the yellows bubble to the top and the white ones fall off anyway, right? So we can get rid of those. I think I'm fine with that, because I also think then, again, I think this has to be within 2 weeks, right? Special meeting and come back with this. I mean, what I'm seeing or what I'm thinking is Little Creek 17 is, I want to say the obvious choice for all the reasons we've talked about. The other thing I wanted to offer is I did reach out to the Crutchers, which have parcel 12 or site 12. I haven't heard back from them. They were gone, but I stopped by and left them a note. So, you know, if I look at all these, it's like who's willing to play and what's really viable. It's going to be self-selecting. I don't know if they're going to be willing to play or not. The GOTS are. And then I'm thinking, you know, we've got the county right of way parcel. That's not the site, but, you know, that's something that Stan Tech can look at, you know, if we need, I don't know, whatever you need, you know, it's an asset. How about if we just say that? It's not where we locate the facility, but it's an asset that's available to us. And maybe that's some of these others too, you know, and then whatever the other options are, maybe our second and third just are studied as alternatives in the EIR, and we pick one site to go with, right? And not mess around with, I think with, well, anyway, that's what I'm thinking. Like if we know this is the best site and you adjust the weighting, then let's go with the best site and know what the alternatives are that are going to be studied. I think that gets us farther faster.
Right, and in terms of the Stantec work, we're saying if we can pick one site, everything moves faster and less cost. So I think the goal should be one site, and then we'll identify backups, but not really pursue them right away because we don't have the time or money to do that.
Yeah. And also before we make a final decision, I want to make sure, I want to go back to the property owner and say, thanks for offering, just so you know, you know, this looks like it's going to be real. So I want to give you one more, you know, like just affirm that it's real, not theory, you know, and I think I know what the answer will be, but let's affirm.
Yeah, I agree, especially we don't really know what the cost implications are for these properties at this point. So if we can get a rough idea for the Little Creek property, that would be nice.
Yeah, I think it'll be a favorable lease agreement. And, you know, Bob, I did send you an email from the property owner that outlined probably 8 to 10 points that were all completely reasonable, no showstoppers in there. I can't enumerate them off the top of my head, but no, again, out of the gate, no deal breakers, all very reasonable. And I think helpful to the district. So.
Madam President, if I could ask that you just resend that to me. I know you did send it. It was some time ago. So
yeah, I will find it, and I'm going to do that right now while we're talking, just because you guys know why.
Madam President.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so and from my perspective, along the line of what Director Ross said, we can make this really work out well because even if we go with something.
I think my dog's barking at your dog.
The Gott property, anything other than Little Creek, and even maybe Little Creek, is going to require a lift station, and that's okay if that's what it ends up being. But where the proximity of some of these parcels, as I'm looking at it right now, the overall design of the collection system is probably going to be the same, and I think that's really important that we design the collection system so that it can accommodate a couple of different sites. So as Director Ross does that weighting, you know, take that in mind. And if we have a lift station down on the Little Creek property that goes up to the Gott property, then that's what we have, and that's okay. So I look favorably on Little Creek first, Gott second. I don't know why 18 didn't make the cut. It's a blue one. It's kind of at the upper end of the alfalfa field, I believe. Is that right, or is that a different one?
Wait, hang on.
I believe that's correct.
Because Little Creek is an option, and 18 is owned by the same owner, and that is, they are not interested in offering that as a solution.
Probably because of the use. Yeah, I understand.
Just, that's the deal.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is Brad has offered to update the matrix with the weighting that will reflect the priority site. And then we'll bring that back. I mean, Bob, I guess we'll, like, depending on when we get something back from Stantec and what else we have in August, I kind of am thinking a special just to make sure if we have to dot i's and cross t's in August on everything, we do that. But that's just, you know, you can look at all the pieces and make a recommendation.
Certainly we'll work with you on that. And, you know, we can probably hold our project management committee meeting sooner or later so we can get that part of the process done.
Yeah, okay. One question I did have actually related to 17 because it's out of the district. And that is, if we were to pursue that as this preferred site, how does permitting differ with the property being out of the district versus in, or how does that process work?
I think that's something we ought to get some clarification from the county, because it is in the county's jurisdiction. I believe, and maybe Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, since he's had plenty of county experience, but I believe if a facility is being considered on property that is just outside of the district, normally the county does allow the district to be the lead agency, and for environmental work and all that may necessarily be done. But it certainly is probably worth a discussion with the county.
Madam President, my thought on that, and maybe Mr. Trindle can opine on it too. I've seen plenty of examples where a public agency owns land outside of its boundaries. The flood control district does that. The city of Santa Maria owns a landfill outside of the city of Santa Maria. They just on Lost Forest Canyon. So there's plenty of examples, and it's close enough that if we had to annex it, I think we could do that. And on the lead agency side of it, my understanding of this, we have no permits required from the county to do our work. We are not under their jurisdiction. We do have to do what's called Section 65402, and we have to ask them whether or not our desire is within the within conformance with the general plan. And and that being the case, if the county comes back and says, no, we don't believe it's in conformance with the general plan, then 65402 allows our board with a 4/5 vote to override the county, and we go do it anyways. So I really don't see it as a problem. I'd be happy to hear from Mr. Trindle if I got any of that part wrong, but I believe we should never cede control of this to the county, because we're the ones that have been elected to do this, and the environmental, we will be the lead agency. There's no reason for the county to be the lead agency. We're not a private developer.
Yeah, that's right. 65402 talks about consistency with the general plan, and it's exactly as Director Fayram laid out. There is a similar provision, and in this case, it's the one that would be applicable in 53091 of the government code, which specifically exempts from the application of planning and building ordinances this type of a project because it involves water. It's a facility related to storage or transmission of water and wastewater. So there is a process that has to be followed in order to invoke that exemption. But we've done this before, and in fact, we've just finished litigating a case relatively recently. So we've got all of that pretty much in the can already. It's just important to explain in the resolution that it has to be noticed publicly and then considered and then adopted why this location is the only feasible location for it. That standard is fairly straightforward, and it'd be pretty easy to meet that given the sites that are going to be dropping out with the rejiggering of the matrix. So it's all set forth in 53091 and a couple of preceding sections are after that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and thank you for the citation, because I spoke to a gentleman in Laguna Sanitation, which is part of the County Public Works Department, and some of you may know they're doing a very sizable upgrade to their plant and doing a lot of the work that we're doing right now, and they receive no permits. They're a special district as well, and they receive no permits or any planning oversight from the county. So thank you for that, Mr. Trimble.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Brad, did you have a question or comment? Otherwise, I have a question and a comment.
I have a comment. So since we're targeting having one site as the lead and then a backup site that would have a very similar collection system, should we tell Stantec to put their revised proposal together based on designing for one site?
My vote's yes. I'll break the silence. My vote's yes. And the reason why I say that is because depending on the sites that we end up with out of the matrix, if we ended up for whatever reason going to a different site, it's the addition of a lift station.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking more about our fellow board members, than making sure that we've got everybody on board before we, anyway, just, I agree we should go with one, but I don't
Is that
want to get too far ahead with them.
Is that something that Mr. Perot, as the general manager, could just touch base with them and make sure that if there's any consternation, then we could bring it back for full board approval, or if not, we could proceed on that?
Madam
think
President, if I could, just a thought about that. First of all, I don't think it is problematic with indicating to Stantec that they should design for one site. I think by the time that they actually get underway, which will probably be in August, you will have officially anointed this site, and I think you need to do that at least, or whatever site it is. So that gives pretty clear direction for the next step, which will be the actual acquisition of the property through lease or ownership.
And Madam President, I might add, just looking at Stantec's schedule that they had given us, their design in earnest doesn't really start until end of November. They've got to get the topo, and there's a lot of that lead work done. So we really do have time, as Mr. Perot said.
Right. Okay. Brad, did you have another comment? Okay.
Oh, that was it.
Okay, thank you. So that sounds pretty straightforward, and thank you, Ross. I think what would be helpful, my concern is we spend too much time with the county talking about how it's going to get done or not get done, or what their role is or not. So to the extent, and we already, Tom, and if we need to stand down, we can, but we have time scheduled immediately after our call with HTO tomorrow with Supervisor Hartman, just to kind of give her a heads up on where we're going and what we're thinking. If you think it's too premature, we don't have to do it, but I'd like to be able to say, this is where we think we're headed. It's what it's looking like. Here's the process by which we would move forward. This is the county role or non-role. This is how we see it. Because I want her to be an advocate, or one, I don't want her to hear about it from staff, and two, I want her to be our advocate for not having any speed bumps within planning and development.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And I think what we assert that this is where we're going. And yeah, she has been our champion.
Right.
And we should keep her informed on what our plans are. And we've heard from council on the process, and we can also let her know that this is also the way, keeping control allows us to control the costs and the schedule, whereas
Right.
but it's just
Right.
There's just nothing codified that requires us to pull a permit from the county, and we just don't need to do it. So.
Yeah, it's just a jurisdictional issue. I want it to be a non-issue is what I want, and we just keep moving forward. So Ross, if you can prepare something, even if it's a 2-paragraph email. It's like, if the district were to do this, this is how we do it. This is how we maintain control. Just so, again, we need to minimize, I don't want any non-issues to become issues or slow us down, because a month makes a difference right now, right? If we're screwing around with talking about how it gets done, let's just cut it off right now, talk to her and let her know where we're headed. Then we just keep moving forward is my thinking on this.
Sure, I'll have that email sent to the board and the general manager before the end of the meeting. So I have it written right now.
Thank you very much, Council. You're a mind reader.
Mr. Trindle, I wonder if he has any mind reading skills that wasn't.
Anyway, okay, so Director Ferrum has asked that we finish by 8, and I bet the person who's in Chicago would like us to finish by 8 Pacific time too. So is there anything else on the site review? We've got the project management committee. Brad's got his role. We're going to bring this back and with a weighted the weighted ranking, and we're going to have Stantec do a proposal for one site. Is that correct? Okay.
So just to be clear, when I finish the spreadsheet, should I send it to Bob and let him decide what to do with it?
I think so. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So item 8D, I believe how are we? Bob, you're on mute.
Madam Mayor, I would like to recommend that we pull this item and continue it. And the reason for that is this is basically a recommendation, the retention of UPC to do this work is was forwarded to us through the efforts of the technical committee. We have neither member here. So I'm just suggesting at this point that we continue the item to allow the technical committee members to weigh in as appropriate.
Okay, that sounds, is everyone amenable to that? I think it's a good idea.
So the question is there any schedule implication that we have to be concerned about if we postpone making a decision tonight?
From my perspective, no. If this was 30 to 45 days from now, maybe so. But I think we've got time to do whatever we need to do in terms of the proposal, and we'll be able to move forward in a timely fashion.
And I think too, having a site selected, right? And anyway, I think they'll be able to have a more refined proposal in a few weeks anyway.
Yes.
Or proposals, right, for that permitting and environmental review. Okay, then do we need a motion to do that, or can we just continue it?
Ross?
Yeah, you should have a motion and a second and a vote, just to have the minutes reflect why there was no action taken.
Okay.
Madam President, I would make a motion to continue, but I would also like to ask that when this item comes back, that we have a discussion about who we want as our district to do our environmental. I think the work that UPC did was fine at that level, but to do an environmental document, I think that there are much more applicable firms that do this type of work explicitly for our type, and I don't believe that UPC for doing the environmental review is the right agency. So I'll just opine on that. I'll move continuance of this item, but I would ask that we have options when it comes back.
There's a motion. Need a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. First and a second, any further discussion? My only comment is I agree with Director Ferrum that this is really looking at anyway, I agree with Director Ferrum. Say that. Okay, so roll call, Bob.
Yes, President Palmer.
Aye.
Vice President Ferrum.
Aye.
And Director Ross.
Aye. So are we going to have information about other possible companies that would work on this environmental study so that we can try to actually pick one next month, or? how's that going to work?
You know, actually, there's a couple of things I will just mention, and that is that really what was envisioned here was assistance from UPC in two areas. One was facilitation of the permitting process, and we've had some of that discussion already. And secondly was, again, more of a facilitator role with the environmental. You would, you know, ultimately, if there is a lead, if we are, as Director Ferrum has indicated, will be the lead agency, we probably, the environmental work will be broader than what was anticipated with UPC. And unless there's a general services agreement that sits out there, I'm going to suggest that you're going to need to go out on an RFP for that anyway. And that's going to take a little bit of time.
I would also add, Madam President, that, you know, the environmental work typically starts when you have at least a 30% design. So we're not really in a time crunch on the environmental, and really the environmental doesn't have to be done before the assessment either. You know, it can be, but you know, the environmental really needs to be done before you start breaking ground. But I think there's plenty of time for this. Just my view.
I agree.
Okay. I haven't, anyway, we're going to discuss it again. So that's enough for now. So we've had the motion and we voted. Okay, sorry. Must be closing it on 8. All right, moving on to E. I'm going to, we've got 12 minutes, Bob. So I'm going to let you kind of triage the project development and general manager's report.
And I'll be fairly brief. I just want to update you the project update, that community update did go out last week. I think it's been well received. We have been getting comments back, and most of them have been positive. So obviously people are reading the update. Per your direction, we're going to be doing these more often. We're looking at 6 to 8 week periods over the next year. Having said that, the other is the GSI. I've seen that proposal, need to do a little bit more review on it, but I hope to have that in front of you next meeting. And that, as you've heard already, will be doing a significant amount of the groundwater work and deliberation or review of the injection process. Beyond that, we have been working on the LAMP. We'll have a meeting scheduled with EHS next week. The date has yet to be determined, but it'll be Monday, I think, or Tuesday of next week. And we're going to be discussing within the revisions of the on-site treatment system policies and incorporation into the existing LAMP update that they're undertaking. And we do have the project description that I distributed it again as part of this agenda. It probably does take a little bit more work. If there are any board member comments that they would like to make further on what's been done thus far, please get them into me so that perhaps on our August agenda, we can deal with the project description and get that updated and approved. And that concludes my truncated report.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Questions or comments? Okay. The one thing I will, just on the community updates, I talked to Bob about moving this to a 6 to 8 week rotation, because I think, again, moving into next summer and what we are trying to achieve as far as a favorable benefit assessment process, that the more frequently we're communicating and explaining what we're doing as we go along, the more helpful that'll be to the property owners and to the district. So that's the goal. Okay, thank you. So informational items, discussion by district council on return to in-person meetings. Ross?
Just that coming September 30th, want to keep that date in mind, as that's the end of the remote participation by members of the board. We go back to the Brown Act as we know it. So just keeping that top of mind for a return to in-person. Also, there is a bill that has gone to the front of the pack for COVID-related meeting participation. It's AB 339. And what it would do is it would permit local agencies to go back to basically the pandemic way of doing business if there is a local declaration of emergency. So rather than having to wait for the governor to issue an executive order to suspend provisions of the Brown Act, upon declaration by a local authority of a disaster or declaration of emergency, any local agencies within that area would be able to move to those pandemic type of responses and measures without having to wait for the state. So that looks like it's got a really good chance of passing. It's had a double referral from the Assembly to the Senate, and the Senate received it very positively. So we expect it to pass and be signed. So not directly impacting return to in-person, but something to keep in mind for the future. For example, wildfires, flooding, mudslides, those kinds of things that can happen in that area of the county. Yep, that's it. That concludes my report.
And I would add that in our case for the pandemic, the county health officer has, and we would look to them for that declaration to do that. So.
Right. And just to be clear on but we can resume in person before September 30th, correct? Or you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, so Bob, we're moving to hold our September meeting in person at the school, correct? And the school's on board, and we have that, or we will have that.
I still have to make that contact, but that's what the plan is
Okay.
To do it, be back in person by September.
Okay. I would think by our August meeting, we should probably have that buttoned up, so we're good to go. Okay. Call for agenda items. Anyone?
I have a quick question. So next month we're doing Ring Central instead of Zoom, is that right?
My preference, but certainly it's the board's decision. We'll continue with Zoom.
Either one. I just need to know which one.
I think it'll be Zoom unless the board directs me otherwise.
Just
Okay.
tell us what you want to do.
Zoom.
And be consistent.
Right.
Zoom.
All good.
Thank you. Any other agenda items? The only thing I would say is for project management, if we can get that on a regularly scheduled committee time, just
Right.
so we don't lose track of time, right?
Right.
And if we have one and it's not on my calendar, then tell me.
Yes.
Please. All right. Next regular meeting is Wednesday, August 11th. And also, I mentioned this to Bob, I will not be here for the September meeting, just
Right.
FYI.
When is the date of the September meeting?
Like this.
8th, September 8th, I believe.
The second Wednesday is September 8th. Okay.
I believe I am leaving for Chicago on that day.
You're coming here.
Actually stopping there on my way to Wisconsin. So how does that work with the president and the vice president absent? Reschedule the meeting?
Secretary of State is next, I think, or the Speaker of the House.
Right.
Speaker of the House.
Well, I think we should make sure we've got everybody. I'm back on the 14th.
If it works, especially, well, although for Mr. Trindle, I don't know if it's a problem if we backed it up to the one day to the 7th. I leave on the 8th. When do you leave, Lisa?
I'm gone the 4th to the 14th, so I'm
Okay,
out
you're
for a
gone.
good stretch.
So,
And Madam President, I wouldn't be available on the 7th. No, that's not correct. I would be. So let me check
So-
that.
so the 7th or the 15th would work for me, or we just go with the remaining 3. I just leave it to Mr. Perota to work that out with the remaining board members.
And if it was the 15th, I'd be, did you say, anyway, yeah, just something to work out. So
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, if we keep talking for 3 more minutes, it'll be 8 o'clock, or I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment at 7:57, and a thank you to the president, mayor.
Mayor. Mayor Palmer, Madam Mayor.
I'll second that motion.
All right, first and second.
All in favor? I think we don't need a roll call.
Yep, I know. All right, well, Bob, thanks for, you know, I feel like you've hit the ground running. We're running smoothly and, you know, appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Bob.
thank you to everybody, and thank you, council. We'll look for your email by 8 o'clock.
Yep.
So we have
Sending it
one
now.
final thing to resolve. Does anyone understand Hillary's last chat? I am still on recycle issue.
I think
She had
that's
something she wanted to
just
say about the recycled water.
that it was, never mind, not going to say it. A little pun on recycle.
All good.
All right.
Yeah, you know, that's really, actually, it is all good. I'm super, super excited. So we'll talk more with them tomorrow. And if maybe, Bob, you can update the board by email when you're back, just with what happened. So, all right,
Okay.
everybody have a great rest of your evening. Thanks for everything. Be well.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.